realize that Adolf Hitler came to power through the ballot box. His Nazi party received a majority vote in a parliamentary election, and therefore Hitler, as the head of the party, was appointed the Chancellor of Germany by President Hindenburg. Then Hitler proceeded to take over Austria. He took over Czechoslovakia. He united Romania and Italy in his Axis powers. Why will the Antichrist be such a brilliant individual? Because the Bible and the Fathers tell us he will be totally and perfectly possessed by Lucifer himself. The Antichrist will actually be the person of Lucifer. It will be a kind of incarnation on his part. It won't be a true incarnation. This requires a divine power. Only God can become truly incarnate. But Lucifer will so possess the body and soul and faculties of this human being that the human person will be totally suppressed in a state of complete unconsciousness, and it will be Lucifer walking on this earth. The lips that move will be human, but the voice speaking will be that of Lucifer himself. And he will come upon this earth finally to reign over men, demanding that all bow down and worship him as God. Again, we have an example of this in Adolf Hitler, who as a young man in Vienna made a pact with the devil to become the master of the world. Adolf Hitler was possessed. This is a matter of historical record. This is why an individual of such mediocre talents, he was a paper hanger. He made his living by drawing postcards and selling them to tourists in Vienna. And yet he became the master of practically all of Europe. A man of mesmerizing eloquence. He hypnotized vast throngs of party members who after every speech would jump to their feet shouting and yelling, "Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler!" Well, that was the demon who had possessed Hitler and who was ruling Germany. Adolf Hitler made the officers in his SS take an oath to Lucifer. You know, when our soldiers first liberated Europe and they opened up the gates of these extermination camps, they couldn't believe it. They simply could not believe how human beings could be so cruel, could commit such atrocities. Well, they weren't human beings. They were devils in total possession of Hitler and his SS, who were capable of such viciousness and brutality. Well, when the Antichrist comes, he too will be possessed by Satan, and so will most of his minions. Nazism was a preview of coming attractions of what the reign of the Antichrist will be like. Possession is not at all like that movie, The Antichrist. That was hyped up and glamorized by Hollywood. They wanted to make a horror picture. And I'm personally convinced that Lucifer is already the chairman of the board in Hollywood. He's the one who's calling the shots there today. And so perhaps he wanted this hyped up, sensationalized movie to deceive people about what possession is really like. It's not like that at all. Who also was possessed. And this priest, in following the spirituality of the divine milieu, the phenomenon of man, This poor priest got himself possessed, under the control of a demon, and was totally unaware of it. And the irony of the situation was that the priest who was appointed by the bishop to exorcise him was also possessed, and he didn't know it either. And he had been his professor in the seminary, the exorcist, and who had introduced this young priest into Teilhard de Chardin. And through following his spirituality and his ideas, even the exorcist discovered that he had fallen under the mind control of Satan. There are various degrees of possession. It doesn't take place all at once. Begins with a Ouija board or tarot cards or fortune tellers, or begins with astrology. And that's when we first open the door to Satan in our lives. He avoids this bizarre behavior that we saw in the movie Exorcist because he doesn't want people to know he's there. He doesn't want even his victim to discover that he is gradually taking over his or her life. He knows the first thing they'll do is go call an exorcist, and that's the last person in the world he wants to see. And there are various degrees of possession, till finally you reach that perfect degree we saw in the instance of Adolf Hitler, where a demon is able to imitate perfectly the personality of his human victim, whose own consciousness he has completely suppressed. And according to Marilyn Ferguson, in her book on the New Age movement, the Aquarian Conspiracy, and of course, according to your own Mrs. Constance Cumby here in Detroit, there are far more people possessed today than we realize. All these new methods of meditation, Eastern spirituality, are really short courses in how to get yourself possessed. Transcendental meditation, EST, Earhart Seminar Training, Silva Mind Control, biofeedback, yoga, stress management programs, techniques, New Age spirituality, the mind sciences, Anchor Hold, which is being introduced as a form of spirituality among Catholics, A Course in Miracles. All of these are methods to get oneself under the control of a demon. Silva Mind Control, I can speak from experience. I started to take his program. I was talked into it by another priest. They don't tell you in the beginning that eventually they're going to have you communicating with higher intelligences from out of space. This is all part of the occult. You're not told in the beginning what you're getting into, until finally you reach a point, I'm afraid, where it's too late. Well, one weekend of that, I got as far away from those people as I could get. Father Matthew Fox, a Dominican, has established out in California his Center for Creation-Centered Spirituality. This is simply another technique to get oneself possessed. This is why he brings in people like Starhawk, a registered witch, to teach in his program. It's basically a reversion to paganism, to nature worship, to the worship of creation. And that is the very trap into which Teilhard de Chardin himself fell. According to a recent Gallup poll, at least 10 million Americans have dabbled in this Eastern mysticism and are in some degree of diabolical possession. Well, these are the shock troops, the advanced troops of the Antichrist. who will be marshaled under his flag when he unleashes his reign of terror on the earth. The Bible tells us that the Antichrist will have complete control of all the real wealth of the world. Daniel chapter 11 says he shall control the riches of gold and silver. I'm sure there's some here this afternoon who can remember when we had gold and silver coins. And that's real money because it has a real intrinsic value. I remember when I was a youngster, even the dollar bill. I'd sometimes receive one for a birthday, and as you can imagine, as a youngster, I would examine it very carefully. I would always notice it used to say, redeemable in silver from the United States Treasury. But if you've examined a dollar bill lately, you will notice it no longer says that. Instead, it calls it a Federal Reserve note. All real money was taken from us, at least the gold, in 1932 by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And our silver was taken from us by Nixon in 1971. And in its place was issued this paper money, which has no intrinsic value. As it itself said, it's a Federal Reserve note. And a note is legal jargon for an IOU. It's really just a piece of paper. No, all real wealth has been taken from the American people and concentrated in the hands of the minions of the Antichrist. They say even our gold at Fort Knox is no longer there. It's all been assembled in deep vaults in Geneva, Switzerland. So just what is this piece of paper worth? It's not worth silver anymore. It's not worth gold. Well, it's worth whatever the Federal Reserve says it's worth. By printing more of them, as they did during the presidency of Jimmy Carter, they decreased its value. The more dollars there were, the less each was worth. Or they can print less of them. They can constrict the money supply. They can call these in on loans. And then they can cause a depression. Mr. Alan Greenspan, who presently is the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, he wrote an article in 1958, and he said that the Federal Reserve manipulation of currency, or the money supply in the 1920s, is what brought on the stock market crash of 1929. And Mr. Greenspan says, quote, caused the American economy to collapse. All the Fed, as it's called, has to do is call in its loans and limit the money supply. Well, this is when brokers then have to call in loans that they've made to their clients. And this is when the clients have to go out and sell their cars and watches and rings or whatever they can to pay off the brokers. And this causes a chain reaction in a nation, and this is what brought about the great crash of 1929.